Hey everyone, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening, and today what I wanted to do is I'm going to share a new item with you that I just got for the shop. As most of you know, I grind on CBN predominantly, and one of the things you do have to deal with when you're grinding with CBN is it does create dust. I do have a ventilation system that I have shown before in other videos. This big vent here that I can put up close to the stone that will suck a lot of the dust away. But sometimes I don't want to hear it. Sometimes I like to play music in the shop, and I just don't want to hear the ventilation system running the whole time. So when I do that, I'll throw on a mask. And I recently wore out my old 3M mask, and I wanted to. At first, I was going to just get a replacement straps for it. So when I say I wore it out, I wore the nylon straps out, and the replacement straps were almost as much as a new mask. So I decided to start looking at new masks, and I came across this one, and I want to share it with you guys because I think it's really cool, and I really love it. So it's a mask that has what's called a quick release on it, and it's a simple little thing that someone added to this, but it really makes it useful. So you put your mask on like normal, but it's got a pull down. So I can have my mask on, and now it's on. But if I need to take it off, I can just drop it down real quick. So I can put it on, take it off real quick. It's great. If someone pokes their head in the shop and I need to talk to them, sometimes my wife comes in, wants to talk to me. If I have to talk on the phone, um, so this is great. My other one, I used to have to pull the headset off and everything. And this one just, it has this little quick release and you pull it up and it's on and release it and you can talk. So that's it. I'll put a link in the video below. So if you guys want to get this mask so that you can find that nice and easy. And like I said, I love it. So, my other mask served me great for many, many years until they rotted the straps out. But this quick release feature, I think it's awesome. And sometimes too, it's also sometimes nice just to let air back in. Sometimes you're wearing it, it starts to get steamy and stuff, so you can just kind of pop it down. So that's it. Just wanted to share that new item with you. And now let's get into some talk about sharpening. So what I want to talk about today is edge angles on knives, because it's probably the biggest question that I get from mostly new sharpeners, especially new Tormek users. Uh, Quite a few of you have reached out to me, and I remember when I started too. It's one of those things that you can kind of fall into this thing about angles, and you can almost be obsessed with angles. And I remember when I first started, I thought I was going to have to, one of the misconceptions I had when I started was when I started the sharpening service, I thought people were going to be coming in and asking for their knife to be sharpened at a particular angle. And, and I thought I would see a lot of that. And let me tell you, guys, it doesn't happen. People don't come in and ask, I don't want to say it never happens, but in the last year, let's just take the last year, for example. I've sharpened, thousands of knives, hundreds of customers. I think maybe two people have brought up edge angle. And usually when someone brings up edge angle, it's almost always been an EDC knife or a hunting knife. Someone who knows a little bit more about knives, a knife collector might bring it up, but your home users, your professional chefs, uh, they don't ask and they don't bring it up. Um, and that was kind of an eye opener for me. But one of the reasons why I'm going to say to you, like, don't obsess over it. You need to know it. You need to know how to get particular angles that you might need or want at times, but it is not an everyday event. Like I said, hundreds of customers, maybe one or two mentioned it. And from what I have found, and keep in mind, I have many professional chefs that come in here. We have a lot of amazing restaurants. I have several clients that are private chefs for some very wealthy people. They cook only for one person. Um, I've had private chefs that have walked in here with easily $10,000 or more in Japanese chef's knives, and not a single one of them has ever asked about a particular angle on a knife. They expect you to know what's the best angle for their knife, but don't expect that they're gonna even bring it up because they just don't. And so if you're starting out and if that's one of your concerns is edge angles, don't be concerned about it. It's not something you're going to confront very often. Now, that said, angles are important. You need to know your angles. You need to know how to set your angles. But here's the real truth is 95% of the time, maybe even a little higher, probably close to 98% of the time, you're just going to replicate the angle that the knife already has. If the person brings you in knives and their only complaint is that they're dull, but they lasted for a good period of time, there's no reason to change the angle on there. And you can just use the Sharpie trick. And I'm going to go over the Sharpie trick because I know there are some people that are completely brand new, maybe don't know the Sharpie trick, or are maybe a little confused by it. It's very simple. It works for all kinds of sharpening, so you can use it. It doesn't, I predominantly work on a Tormek, but you can use the Sharpie trick on anything. You can use it on a 1x30. You can use it on a wicked edge like I have over there. You can use it on, you can use it if you're freehanding a knife to be sure you're hitting your angles properly. So use the Sharpie trick. And if you need a specific angle, you know, yeah, on the Tormek, you can use the angle master. Is it my favorite way of setting an angle? It's not. This is great for tools and things with really big bevels. But for knives, it's difficult, especially kitchen knives. But if it's all you got, if this is the only thing you have for setting angles, it'll work for you. It's going to get you in the ballpark. And, you know, and that's good because honestly, like if you are shooting for 18 degrees and your knife's 17, or if you're shooting for 17 degrees and it's 18, it's not going to make it is not a difference that any user is going to notice. you know is there a big difference between 15 and 19? Yes, but 1 degree off one way or the other, it's very uh, minuscule in the results and the performance of that knife. So don't obsess over it. Don't obsess over angles. Know your angles. Find some angles that you like and use those. Now, I'll be happy to share, what I like. So what I use mostly, if it's a Western knife, so we're talking Henkel's, Wusthof, Cuisinarts, anything that's Western style, I typically put between 17 and 18-degree angle on that knife if I need to put an angle on it, if I'm not just matching what's already there. Now, if it's Japanese knife, then I'm usually looking in the 15 to 16-degree range, and that's the angles I use. And those are great numbers, and yes, you could have discussions all day long, and you could talk to 100 other sharpeners, and someone else might say to you, oh, yeah, Paul's wrong, man. 15's not great. It should be 14 for Japanese knives, or it should be 16 for Japanese knives. You're gonna you're gonna find what you like and what works best for you. The numbers that I use are what I have used, and you're welcome to look up my business and and read my Google reviews. I've never had anything less than a 5-star review. Um, and that, you know, that's a great thing, but you don't have to obsess or get in arguments. Or it kind of reminds me of, I used to do a lot of professional photography. Um, and I would see photographers arguing over what camera's better, Nikon, Canon, Sony, what lens is better, this is better, that's better. And it's kind of a trick. Like, the in the camera world and photography world, they love to constantly make you think like that you need the next best camera, and you need the next best gear, and you need the next best thing, and they pitch it to you, and you will see, what we would see, obsessive people over just buying camera gear, but they sucked as photographers. um, they were not fantastic photographers, but they were more into buying gear than they were into taking great pictures. And what you realize as a photographer is, it's it's the skill of using the gear and the person behind the camera that makes it great. And I shot Nikon for many, many, many years, probably close to 30 years, and then switched to Sony. They're both great cameras. Nikon, Canon, so fantastic. They're all wonderful cameras. Um, but what really makes the photography great is the guy behind the camera pressing the shutter, and his eye or her eye, or whatever the artist is seeing. And sharpening is kind of the same way. Like, you can get into stupid arguments over edge angles. You can get into stupid arguments about, what's the best, the Wicked Edge is better than the Tormek, or the Tormek's the greatest sharpening thing in the world, or the 1x30 is better than that, or the 1x42. They're all great methods for sharpening. And, there's no right or wrong. There's what works, and what might work great for you, and what you might end up having really seriously awesome skills at may be different than what another sharpener does. It, Guys that have been sharpening on sanders for years, some of them have incredibly awesome skills at sharpening on a little 1x30. Uh, People that use Tormex all the time, like myself, get very, very good at sharpening on the Tormek. So it's a skill just like anything else. And the more you do it, the more of an expert you're going to become at it. And you will, learn tricks along the way and learn other things to make that easier for you. So that said, let's talk about the number one method, if you are a sharpening business or a sharpening service, that you should be using most of the time, which is the Sharpie method. I'm going to show that right now, how I do it on my Tormek. Like I said, it's applicable to really any kind of sharpener you want to use out there. So simply, I'm going to just grab a knife here. This is just a little steak knife that someone brought in. You're going to put it into your jig. I like to angle my jig with the angle of the knife a little bit forward and equal on both sides. That's in there good and tight. All right, so simply what you're going to do, you take your Sharpie and you draw, and I like these big fat king size Sharpies, and you draw right down that bevel. Right on there. Big old line. And you can do it on both sides. You can also use this for honing. If you're new to honing and you want to make sure you're hitting your honing angles right, there's nothing, you can use the Sharpie all day long. And don't worry about getting it off if you're like, oh, how am I going to get the Sharpie off? You'll see around, if you look around my shop, these things are all over the place. It's isopropyl alcohol. If you can get it above 90%, it works better. This bottle says 91, but it's actually 99%. I found a 99% isopropyl that I use, and it will melt the Sharpie right off. So when you need to get it off, because a lot of it's going to come off grinding, but sometimes there's a little residual, this takes it right off in 2 seconds. I have never had a knife that I couldn't get the Sharpie off of. So don't be afraid of drawing on there and using it. It comes right off. So you put it on, you go down to your stone and you line it up. And here's another thing that you're going to learn. And I'm going to just do a tiny little adjustment on the camera here because I want you to see more of what I'm doing than of me. All right, so I come down to my Tormek, and what you will also learn when we're talking about angles, once you've done a lot of knives, I kind of know by the size of the knife where it should land on the stone. So when I'm doing like a big chef's knife, I know like right around this area is usually the proper spot for about an 18, 17 degree angle. And you'll learn that for your different size knives. So that's another thing that will eventually just come to you. And you can also, there's other things you can tell too, like when I do my curved portion and I do my turn, I can also look and see how that's touching the stone. And I can adjust even just from that, just visually looking at it. But so you come down here and you're just going to do a small draw, and that's it. And then you're going to take it out and you're going to look as close as you can at that bevel. Let's see if I can get that. All right, so there you go. See that little glint? So that is where it removed from. And you can see it is going all the way down to the apex and almost the whole way up the existing bevel. And that's actually perfect. So I wouldn't really make any adjustments to this at all. And what I have found with CBN for me, I know this just from doing it, typically about 5 strokes, and I'll start to feel a burr. And if I don't, then I usually will make a small angle adjustment. But I try and keep it even on both sides. So I'll do 5 quick strokes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to feel for a burr. And I do feel a burr that has started. And it looks pretty good. It's a little bit of a hollow back here, so which isn't uncommon. A lot of times this area of the knife gets ground down a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit more grind in there in the back. A little bit more up here at the tip. And that feels good. And now I'm going to do the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's close. It's not exactly there. It's pretty close. And sometimes, so for me, I might take a look under the scope. I can see a few chips here that are still in this knife. So I'm going to do a little bit more grinding on both sides. So I'm not going to make an angle adjustment because I kind of like the angle. I'm just going to go and just do some more grinding. Now I got to do the other side, match it up again. And now that feels a lot better to me. And this is another thing you will learn. You're get used to knowing like when it's ready. And I can tell that has been apexed. I don't even have to look at it under the scope. I can just tell from feeling it. So if the Tormex's all you had, you could uh, use, you can go to your hone now, your honing wheel. And same thing, if you're new to honing and you don't know, you don't have a feel yet for getting that perfect angle on the hone, you can flip this around and use the angle guide. And it doesn't hurt to do that a few times just to get the feel for what the proper angle is going to be. And keep in mind, the diameter is different on the honing wheel, so you do have to make that adjustment on your Tormek angle guide. It's not the same size as the regular wheel. Now, I'm going to show you guys something new. And let me stop this for 1 second, and I'm going to change the camera here a little bit. Okay, so over here on my downdraft table, I want to show you, this is something new I've been working on. I converted an old Harbor Freight 1x30 to a variable speed with a sewing machine motor. Did that through following Cliff Curry's instructions on how to do that. If you want to know about 1x30s and everything you could ever imagine doing with a 1x30, check out Cliff's stuff. He's awesome. He also sells great belts and products for 1x30s. I like his Trizec belts and his Kubatron belts. And but this is my new favorite way to strop. I am now using diamond emulsion sprays on leather strops. This is a 3 micron strop, and I found I like a speed on this of around 1900 RPMs, and it just does an amazing job of stropping knives. And it's quick, it's efficient, and I've been really, really happy with it. And I love having the 1x30 with the variable speed control. But yeah, that's perfect. So that's cutting beautifully through there. I'm going to pull this out now and just do a little bit more stropping on it. I think the jig was getting away. A little bit of me hitting it right in the middle. But I find having the variable speed gives you a lot more control. If you are a new sharpener and all you have is like this one to the right here is also a 1x30, that's a win. Has not been converted, but there you go. You can just see. I mean, it's just beautiful edge. Be careful with your regular 1x30s. If they haven't been converted, they go very, very fast. You're talking around 3,000 RPMs. If you're using this to grind on or sharpen on, that takes some getting used to. And I really only use this for reprofiling knives, and I also use it for lots of different other kinds of cool belts, like Scotch-Brite belts and things like that. I don't use this for sharpening at all or setting angles. It's for kind of reprofiling for broken tips and things like that. Otherwise, I use my variable speed 1x30, which is my new favorite. Even over, sorry Tormek, but I like it even more than my Tormek power wheels, and I have both the leather and the synthetic. So now let me show you real quick how the Sharpie comes off. I want to show you that. So let's see if this will focus. Am I too close? Let's see here. All right. So let's see here. So there's a little bit of Sharpie up at the top and can hopefully it's grabbing that. So you just wet it and it simply just starts to melt. Of course, I didn't bring a rag. All right, there we go. And then you just wipe it right off. And you can see that's gone. And it's what was there is on the rag. And that's it. And it's just, oh, there is a little more on this side. I'm going to point it down so that it kind of goes down. There's a tiny bit on this side. And I'll just wipe that off. Yep, there we go. And it's all gone. And that is how you use the Sharpie trick. It's that simple. And you should be using that for almost everything that comes in your shop. Because keep in mind, if you're going to reprofile a knife to a new angle, depending on the angle change, you could be adding significant time grinding to that knife. Because even a small angle change can take a lot of time to remove metal to meet that new angle. So it's not always a fast process, and depending on what you're using, it can take a while. Now, if you're doing 1x30 or something like that, or even a Tormek with a pretty high grit wheel, like my 400 grit there, you're going to get there a lot quicker. But if you're doing it by hand on something like over here, like a Wicked Edge, that can take a while if you're changing an angle. So now I'm just going to talk real quick about some other quick little things I'll do if I do need to hit a particular angle. So let's say a knife comes in the shop and it's super dull, and I see this a lot too. Sometimes someone brings in a knife, hasn't been sharpened in 30 years, and it might be incredibly dull. So sometimes what I'll do is I might use my Wicked Edge. I'll come over here because I do like the Wicked Edge because of the straight angles. I might come over to my Wicked Edge. I'll dial in whatever angle I want. I usually will grab, they're actually sitting out here. My most aggressive stones that I have for this are a 100 and 200 grit diamond. And that's where I'll start. And I usually won't take it all the way to a full sharpening. I'll just restart that bevel and get that angle cut on there, and then I will once again go right to the Sharpie trick and then use the Sharpie to finish it off. And here's a couple other options, and this is why I like having multiple sharpeners. Now I'm going to show you over here. I have this is a Ken Onion Elite. It was one of the first, the regular Ken Onion was one of the first sharpeners that I got. Then when they came out with the Elite, I got the Elite. But it does from 10 to 35 degrees. Same thing. This is another thing you could do if you want to start a new angle. You could take something like this. I have a Cubitron belt on here, which are very aggressive. It's 120 grit Cubitron. They last a long time. Now, I have used the two closest holes on my Ken Onion because I don't want a lot of slack in my belt. I want it as straight as possible. Some people like more convex edges and are going to separate those, but since I'm trying to take this sometimes from here to my Tormek, I don't want a whole lot of slack in there. I'm not looking for convex angles. But this is an option. You can do it on here. What's another option? Another option is the 1x30. You can get these angle guides. You see one right here sitting on here. The angle guides are great. And if you really want to be precise with your angle guide, get yourself an angle setter, a little angle cube. So this is a digital angle guide. And what you do, they usually have a magnetic side, so it'll stick to things. I zero mine out on the flat part of the saw, and then I bring it right here to my angle setter. And now my little angle setter does have marks on it for 10, 15, and then there's like 2 marks in between, and then it goes up to 30 and 45. But I actually found on my particular one, they were only about a degree off. So they're pretty close, but if you really want to be, spot on with your angles, consider an angle cube. So that's another method where you can get an angle started, then go to the mark, marker trick, and and go back to your Tormek if you wanted to do it that way. So just a couple, just simple options for restarting a particular angle that you might want to hit. But like I said, the majority of the time you're going to end up using the marker trick and the Sharpie trick, and that's pretty much all you need to do. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Um, I try not to be too long-winded, but for new sharpeners out there and guys that are just getting started with their business, I hope this helps you out. Feel free to comment and have a great day.